Hey, thanks for clicking in. It's Monica. Welcome. So, I wanted to share with you my perspective on aging. So, on that note, I will share my age with you, which is no big deal to me. I'm 35. I will be 36 at the end of this year. And do I feel 35? No, I feel 12. I've said that before. Why do I feel 12? Because I feel like a kid. I don't have any children by choice. I don't have any children. So I don't have that big responsibility. Perhaps that lends itself to me feeling that way. I feel like I have a lot of freedom, both my husband and I. Do I think I'm old? No, I don't think I'm old. Now that doesn't mean that other people wouldn't think I'm old. But of course that depends on where you're coming from, how old you are. Perhaps you don't care, or perhaps if you're 90, you may look at me or hear my age and think, oh, you're just a baby, you're just starting out. Or if you're 16, you may think, dang girl, you are old. Technically, I would be old enough to be your mother. And that is very true, and all of that is fine. I think what's important though is how we see ourselves. In my opinion, I think it's very important to be respectful of others and what they decide to do or not do with their life in every aspect. Of course, you don't always get that, and that's reality, and that's fine, but that is my personal opinion. Because you may talk to me, and you may tell me, I'm going to go do this treatment, I'm going to go have this surgery, I'm going to go have that surgery, or I'm not going to do anything. And either way, I would say, that's great, cool, oh really, that's great, you should, that's awesome. That's me being supportive. That's not me saying, hey, I would do it too, or I wouldn't do it, depending on my reaction. So I think that's first and foremost. I think there's always a lot of judgment with the whole aging thing, and I speak from my perspective, which is of the female perspective, and what I tend to notice from other females. But it does seem to be, generally speaking, a kind of a touchy subject. I try for it not to be with me because, the years are going to pass no matter what I do. So one thing that the one way that I look at aging, or at, growing older, that I think is kind of different to a lot of other people, at least in my opinion. I know I say that. You've probably heard me say that a couple of times before, but I always say that because one of the reasons I started my channel was to share my perspective. We all have our own perspective and we all want to share it. So whenever I feel like I have a unique perspective on something, or a fresh perspective on something, I think that's something that I want to share with you guys, and perhaps it will help you in some way. So my perspective on aging, on my age, generally speaking, you tend to start looking to the past. You'll look at pictures of yourself when you were 10 years younger. You know, like I said, I'm 35. Let's say I look at pictures of myself when I first got married. I got married at 19, so I was really just a kid. So I could look at those pictures and say, oh wow, look, I was so young. Look, I was so thin, because I'm quite a bit heavier than I was when I first got married, but that's another video. I mean, it does have to do with the whole scheme of things, but that's not really what I'm talking about here. So I could look at that and just be like, wow, I'm never gonna look like that again. That may be true, and it's most likely true, but who says I have to look worse? Who says I can't look better than I looked back then? Why does the change have to be a negative change? Because things will always change, but why can't they change for the better? For example, let me give you just a quick example. As we get older, our bodies change, like how they work, how they function. And, maybe, someone will say, or let's say I say, oh, my back hurts, or I'm getting old. Well, is it really that you're getting old, or is it just that your body's more demanding? And I think that matters. That may sound like the same thing to you, but I think words matter. I know that most of us grew up hearing that whatever you think, whatever you say to yourself, you manifest it into the physical. So why don't we think that way with the words we say out loud? And it may come across to people that like you're in denial, or you don't want to, you think you're an exception to the rule. Um, but that's not, at least for me, that's not my intention. I am trying to keep a fresh perspective. So I'm not going to keep a fresh perspective when I'm alone, and then when I'm around people talk differently, because I will fall into a habit. So I need to keep that perspective up with me. And if people don't understand why I'm expressing myself the way I am, it's not because I think I'm special or I'm different or I'm not going to age or I'm going to look younger than everyone. It's because I'm just trying to look at things with fresh eyes and look at things differently. Um, I mean, I think the only person that really truly knows me in and out is my husband. My husband and I, not only are we husband and wife, we're best friends. We talk about everything, and I think he knows that and he's the same way. That I don't like to go with the norm. I don't like to say something just to fit in or just to relate to someone. I don't. And I have often said it to my husband and other people, not much, but mostly my husband, that I'm like an antisocial person. I truly think I am. I am totally happy alone at home and just having a few close people to me, and that's it. So I've never been one to go along with the crowd. The phrase misery loves company. And I think that's true. I think that when one person is going through something difficult, we want other people to come, feel the same pain with us. And I think there's a time and place for that. I think when really serious life things are happening, I think that's a different story. But I'm talking about oh, I have a headache. Oh, you think you have a headache? I had like the worst headache yesterday. And someone else will come in and say, oh, that's nothing. I get migraines. And we start getting into this weird competition of who's in more pain or who's going through the toughest stuff. It's like, I don't want to go through tough stuff. I'm not going to sit here and reminisce about how crappy I felt 2 days ago. No. Now, does that mean I've never had a headache? Does that mean I've never been through difficult, painful situations? No, that doesn't mean that. It just means that I'm not going to speak of it to make it bigger. Because, if you know about the law of attraction, you know that whatever you give attention to with your mind, with your words, with just anything, gets bigger. So why am I going to talk about something that I don't necessarily find pleasant? I'm going to talk about the positive things. Going back to something I kind of touched on when I first started talking, looking back at yourself, or me looking back at myself when I'm younger. A great way to replace that thought of looking back to when you were in your 20s or when you were a teenager is to imagine yourself instead 10, 20 years older, 30 years older. And what I mean is, instead of me looking back at myself when I was still in my 20s, let's say, why don't I look at myself now as if I was in my 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90? Why don't I look at myself that way? When I'm 90, I'm going to look at my life now and think, wow, why didn't I think I was young? I was so young and vibrant and so energetic and all this stuff. I had so much life in front of me. Why don't we replace the looking back with the looking forward instead? Looking at ourselves from the older version of us. Because the beauty of that is when we put ourselves in that frame of mind of being, 20, 30 years from now, oh, thinking how young you were, well, guess what? You're that age right now. So enjoy it. And I think that that's a beautiful way to look at it, and that is what I do. I try to remember to do that. I still fall into the habit of whenever I do think about my age, I don't think about my age that much, you know. It's not like a thing that's always on my mind. Um, but I do, when I do think about it, I do try to remember to think of it in that way. And if you're still really young and you have absolutely no concern about your age or anything, then maybe it'll be something that you just kind of like put in the back of your mind. And once you start getting to an age where you might start feeling a little kind of funny about your age, maybe you'll kind of pull this perspective out and say, hey, I think this will help me now. So that's all I have. So I'd like to take a moment to thank my most recent subscriber, TT Nails and Makeup. Thank you so much for subscribing and welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already. Best wishes. Till next time. Oh, and I forgot to share something with you guys. I am doing hauls on my Snapchat. I don't really enjoy making haul videos for my YouTube channel, although I might make them in the future, I don't know. So if you guys want to know what I'm buying and what I'm trying out, go add me on Snapchat. And my username on Snapchat is I am Monica Ranger. So I will see you there.